Today we are talking about burnout part 3. So we're going to be exploring the conversations that we were having about burnout, and we're going to look today specifically at some things that you can begin to do to support yourself in reconnecting with your creativity, using creativity as a way to heal burnout, and other steps that you can take to really get yourself back on track, back online, to be fully vital and express the vital force that you are out in the world in the way that's right for you. Before we get started, I really want to address something that I think is a difficult thing we don't talk about a lot when we talk about burnout. The only way to heal burnout is to take time to heal it. And there really is no pill, no fast track response, no nothing that you can do quickly to heal your burnout. So if you are burnout, I want you to hear that. Not because I want you to be discouraged, but I'm going to invite you today with some of the stuff we're going to talk about to shift some of the meanings that you have around time, in addition to the meanings that you might have around your energy. It is beautiful to think about burnout as being a gift from the universe. And I know that's not really how we like to think about it, because it's frustrating and it's difficult sometimes when you have to fulfill your obligations. Maybe you have to go to work to think, oh, burnout is a gift. But it is a space in the cosmic plan that allows you to take a pause and recalibrate where you're headed. When we look at where the energy of burnout lives in the chart, it is associated with several energy centers in the chart, most particularly with the will center and with the emotional solar plexus. Both of these centers, the will center being part of the heart chakra, the emotional solar plexus being part of the solar plexus, both of these centers are extremely important energy centers when it comes to creating what you want in your life. When you're in that loving cosmic dead space, that pause that burnout gives you, it's really not a curse. It's an opportunity for you to recalibrate, recalculate, realign, restore, replenish, renourish, recharge. Notice there's a lot of re's in there, right? So that you can find a way to integrate your life and your lifestyle back into a place of integrity. And I'm talking about integrity, I'm talking about moralistic integrity. I'm talking about the integrity of living aligned with, structurally aligned with who you really are. So that during that burnout, as you rest and restore yourself, you're also getting yourself back on track to creating a life that is an honest reflection, an aligned reflection of the truth of who you are. That aspect of the chart is connected to the will center. And that aspect of the chart, the integrity piece, is linked deeply to your self-worth and your self-value. So even though we resist burnout sometimes, I want you to really embrace the idea that your burnout is something that your higher self sent to you as a generous act, as an act of love and compassion. Play with that while we talk about what we talk about today. Think about burnout as being a generous act. And I want to invite you today, as we go through the material, or before we go through the material, to explore the question, what do you need to do in your life to be more generous with yourself so that you have more for yourself, more that you can give to yourself, so that ultimately you have more to give to the world. But you can't give to the world if your cup is dry. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. How do we get back to the place where our cup feels full and we are back in sync with the truth of who we are? All right, bouncing back from burnout. Today we're going to talk about two things: an integrated approach to healing burnout. I'm going to give you some concrete strategies, things you can do to begin to bring yourself back online, back in alignment with who you are. And we're going to talk a little bit about some things you can do to craft a workable plan for healing your burnout. As we've talked about in the past, in the last month, there are 4 root areas of healing burnout, which those 4 root areas are also the 4 root causes of burnout. The first thing we have to look at is what I like to call resiliency, or the scales or the keys to resiliency. If we take the entire human design chart and we put it into a blender and we blended it all up, we would come out with 9 core archetypes that are really at the root of all the other pieces of the human design chart. These 9 core archetypes need to be functioning in a high level for you to be resilient. And when you're resilient, you're not burned out. You're able to bounce and to adapt and to flow and to respond to, not in the generator way, but in the human way, respond to the challenges that life throws at you with resiliency and creativity. When we're burned out, we're not resilient. We're crunchy and crispy, and we don't bounce. We go splat or crinkle or crunch, right, when we land. So these 9 core keys, the 9 parts of your own resiliency that need to be in place for you to heal your burnout are lovability, empowerment, courage, decisiveness, authenticity, emotional wisdom, leveraging energy, meaning your vitality, self-trust, and self-worth. So in other words, for you to be resilient, for you to heal your burnout, one of the things that oftentimes has to be handled is your sense of lovability. Because if you're functioning at a low level of lovability, you're putting a lot of energy out into the world trying to prove your lovability, and it's exhausting. The second thing is you've got to feel empowered in your life. If you feel powerless over your life or over your life's circumstances, you will spend a lot of energy fighting, trying to regain some kind of power. We all need power. It's a human need. It's such an important human need that we go through 2 very important developmental cycles in our childhood, both around the ages 2 to 4 to 5, so our early toddlerhood when we learn to say no, and as teenagers. We need to be empowered, and we discover power so much that we have to really explore it as a developmental phase. If you don't feel powerful in your life, or you don't know how to access power in your life, you will spend a lot of energy struggling with feeling disempowered. If fear is ruling your life, if there are things that you are afraid of, fear drains an enormous amount of energy. So learning how to cultivate courage in the face of fear is a vital thing that has to happen for some of us to become more resilient and to heal burnout. Knowing how to make good and right decisions for you, and this is where human design is such a beautiful tool, because human design teaches you that when you know your type, you understand your unique way of making a decision based on your type and your authority, and that gives you the power to make good choices for yourself. If you are not being decisive, if you're holding yourself back from making good choices, or you don't think you can make good choices for yourself, or you don't know how to make good choices for yourself, the confusion that ensues or the sense of feeling lost or disconnected from your life direction will burn you out. If you don't feel like you can be authentic in the way in which you express yourself in the world, if you're hiding who you are, you're going to use a lot of energy to hide behind that mask, and it will cause you to burn out. If you don't understand the nature of how your emotional energy works and how to use it as a creative force, and you are instead being subject to your own inner drama, or you're hiding from other people's emotional drama, you will burn a lot of energy not using your emotional energy correctly, and it'll leave you feeling, again, confused and indecisive about what to do with your life. Obviously, if you're physically burned out, if you don't know how to use your energy correctly, especially if you're working incorrectly according to your human design type, you will not be resilient. So you have to also, when you heal burnout, not just look at all these other things, we actually literally have to heal the body. The body has to be restored. If you don't trust yourself, if you don't know how your intuition works, if you don't know how to get to what's true and right for you, it kind of goes hand in hand with decisiveness. If you don't trust your own intuitive awareness, or you don't trust yourself to do what's right for yourself, or you're getting messages and you're ignoring them because you feel guilty or bad, or you question where's that information coming from. If you don't trust yourself, you will struggle with gaining access to high quality energy for creativity. And of course, last but certainly not least, if you're not valuing yourself, you will have a tendency to say no when you want to say yes, to say yes when you want to say no, to fail to do the things necessary to take care of yourself, or to be generous with yourself. You might find that you don't even do things like take your vitamins or drink enough water. The basics sometimes of self-care don't happen when we don't value ourselves enough, causing us to lose energy and to become burned out. To become more resilient, we have to heal all of these 9 keys. You have to look at what needs to happen. And there are lots of different ways you can do this. Certainly learning your human design is one way. In the quantum alignment system, we actually have an integrated approach to helping you work with your energy to bring an elevated expression of these 9 resiliency keys in back online for yourself. And you can use coaching. If some of you may find that if you really explore this deeply, there may be a deep trauma that's at root here that maybe you need extra support to get through. But these 9 keys have to be functioning well for you to sustain yourself and stay vital in the world. And you've got to explore. I invite you to explore. You don't have to. But I strongly encourage you to explore these 9 themes, because when you can bring all of these back online, you unlock an enormous amount of energy that can really set you free to be more resilient in the face of anything that life throws at you. The second thing that happens, or the second thing we see, is unhealed trauma can also cause burnout. 95% of my students catalog or categorize themselves as being burned out. Now, that's about 30% higher than the national average. And I think part of why that national average is a little bit higher is because I do use a little bit of a different definition of burnout. I'm much pickier about the quality of life that I want you to live. So my questions about burnout in my surveys are much more defined and clear, because I don't settle for just getting by. I want you all to live an extraordinarily well lit up dynamic life, and that's my goal in the work that I do. The other thing that's very interesting to note is that 85% of my students report that they have experienced over the course of their life some kind of trauma, and that can be sexual assault trauma, that can be feeling abused, emotionally abused as a child, or physically abused as a child, and even feeling traumatized by going to school and experiences that you've had at school. When we don't heal trauma, when we put a coating around it emotionally and shove it down, when we store it away, when we deny it, when we don't look at it, when we don't process it, when we don't find the blessings in it and use it as a tool or a catalyst for our growth, because maybe the pain is too much, we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy protecting ourselves around that traumatic or traumatized identity. And that energy that we spend protecting ourselves from experiencing or re-experiencing that trauma and not allowing that trauma to be healed causes us to take energy away from living our life, and causes us to use that energy to sustain that protective coating on our trauma. And certainly I would say, if you feel that you have been traumatized and you have not completely healed that trauma, even if it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, I find with some of my clients, it doesn't mean that on some level it might not still be impacting your energy. And if you want to heal your burnout, sometimes we have to go and look at what's the root cause of the burnout. Is it unhealed trauma? And do we need to rip off the protective coating, deal with what's inside, and let it go so that you can live fully aligned and healed? And again, the quantum alignment system addresses some of that, and everything I just said about the 9 resiliency keys might also apply to you. Many of us find that we need to go get some extra support in rooting that out and cleaning it out of our system, finding a way to integrate what has happened to us in a catalytic, expansive way, and not letting ourselves be held back from things that have happened in the past that are keeping us from fully accessing the power and the potential of who we really are. The third thing that can cause and that needs to be healed, okay, that needs to be healed for burnout, and this is again a place where human design is so powerful. When you understand your human design, one of the things that you learn is that you have energy needs. Everybody has energy needs. So, for example, manifestors and manifesting generators have an energy need for power. We all need to have power, but manifesting generators and manifestors need to have a specific kind of power. And if they don't get that kind of power, or they don't learn how to use that kind of power in their life, then they actually can burn out trying to push their need for power aside. If you are a generator or a projector or a reflector, you need to have attention. In fact, you need it because that's how you get your energy needs met. You feel recognized, heard, and you get your energy field activated when you get recognition and attention. And you need that. That's not weakness. That's not brokenness. That's not annoying. That's just a plain old straight up energy need. When you start to learn your human design, you start to understand the kinds of energy needs that you have, and you can start constructing your relationships in such a way that you begin to learn to get your energy needs met appropriately, because sometimes we don't learn how to do that appropriately, instead of using inappropriate techniques that cause you to deplete and burn your energy out. So, for example, let's say that you are a projector, okay? And projectors literally need recognition and attention. If you are a projector, when somebody recognizes you or gives you attention, it actually allows you to move all that energy that's stored up inside of you. It's a physiological, energetic need. If you have never learned or you were not given appropriate attention and recognition as a child, so I have a projector child, right? And I know, for example, when I pick her up from school, that I need to spend 30 minutes with her every day while she's in the backseat of the car. She needs this. She needs to have a space where she can just talk through her day, and I listen to her and I respond and I answer her questions, or I make comments about, wow, that's interesting, or whoa, you handled that well, or she needs to have that opportunity, that attention and that recognition to move the energy of the day out of her body. If I didn't give that to her, she might learn inappropriate ways to get attention. She might kick the back seat of my car, right, as I'm driving repeatedly to annoy me, or not consciously. You don't do this consciously. It's just you learn as a child how to do these things because that's how you get your needs met. Inappropriate need met, getting your needs met inappropriately is easier than not get, or it feels less painful than not getting your energy needs met at all. So sometimes what happens is over the course of our lives, we don't learn how to get these needs met appropriately. We do inappropriate things to get these needs met. And then we spend a lot of energy with these inappropriate strategies instead of stepping back, standing in the value of who we are, trusting in the cosmic plan, owning our own power, and in a lot of cases, particularly for generators, projectors, and reflectors, being quiet and letting your aura do the talking and letting the right people who are ready to receive what you have to share calling you out and giving you attention. To heal this, you have to learn what your energy needs are, and you have to practice getting those needs met appropriately. So, for example, again, for a projector, that might mean being quiet until somebody asks you, or it might mean saying something like, learning to say something like, I really need a sounding board right now. Is this a good time for me to kind of just dump what's going on with me? I really just need to just kind of dump it all out on the table. There's a lot going on inside of me and I need some extra support right now. That's an appropriate way to ask to get your needs met rather than doing some kind of mischief or spending energy doing something inappropriate to get those needs met in a way that maybe isn't even productive. So, last but not least, if you want to heal your burnout, you have to heal your belief system. Do you believe that life can be easy and joyful? And if you don't, I'm going to gently and lovingly and maybe a little bit firmly suggest that we work on cultivating a new set of belief systems that really support you in believing that this is a possibility for you, that your life can be easy and joyful. And the more you can be generous with yourself enough to create a mindset that allows you to create a life in alignment with that belief system, the more you can actually heal the burnout. So let's talk a little bit more about that. To talk about that, we have to first explore and learn about the energy components of the human experience. Or in other words, we're going to talk about how do we create. So before we can talk about how we create, we have to talk about the components of the creative process. So I'm going to break this down for you. The first component in the creative process, I like to call it the cosmic soup, is the quantum field. There exists, we're already swimming in it. It's not like it's out there somewhere. You're in it. You're swimming in this matrix of non-manifest reality. You are swimming in a matrix of infinite possibility. These are infinite possibilities that have not been made manifest yet. They're not part of your life yet, but they're there and they're available for you, provided you discover how exactly you're going to make those potentials part of your reality, which is what we're going to talk about now. By the way, this entire process is mitigated through consciousness, which operates by light. You are light beings. We talk about this a lot in human design. You are a light being, and the way in which you interface with the cosmos is through using the power of light, which you direct through your consciousness. The second component in the creative process we'll call the manifest reality. All right, the manifest reality. This is your life right now. Okay. I'm going to break this down for you even in more detail in just a minute. But before we do, I'm going to do a little exercise with you. I want you to just take a minute right now. And I want you to think about your energy right now. Think about your current energetic state. And if you want to, you can even just take a couple of notes, just do bullet notes. What comes to mind when you think about your energy right now? Energy is an archetype. Now, it is a physical thing too. It's a measurable phenomenon in physics, but it's also an archetype. When we talk about, oh, I just don't have the energy today, we're talking about an archetype. Anything that's an archetype is a neutral concept. Energy is a neutral concept, right? It's neither good or bad. It's a concept that has an infinite number of expressions, right? You can be low energy. So when I said, think of your energy today, some of you may have been like, whoa, is she ever going to shut up? I think I'm going to get off this webcast right now and go do something else, right? Or, oh, I'm so tired. I can't even do anything right now. I'm just going to lay here on the couch. That's an expression of that archetype. Maybe all the way over on the other end, you're like, zow, zippy pow, I just had a whole ton of coffee and I'm ready to go. And that might be just another expression of this archetype energy, right? When I said the word energy and you started thinking about it, what you did in response to the word energy is your brain started creating a photon storm. Remember I said the medium through which we create is photon lights. You create photon storms in your brain. Anytime you have a thought, anytime you encounter an archetype, you have a photon storm in your brain. That photon storm stimulates your brain to make neurotransmitters. Those neurotransmitters, these are measurable physical chemicals in your blood. If I had you in the lab and I started to explore and examine what happened to you in response to the word energy, I could, with measurable tools, scientific tools, measure the neurotransmitter response that you create, specific neurotransmitter response that you create in response to the word energy. Those neurotransmitters in turn stimulate your emotions. Okay, they stimulate your emotions. They cause your body to have an emotional response to the word energy. That emotional response, in turn, calibrates your heart. And if you have positive emotional responses in response to the word energy, your heart syncs up and your whole being moves into a state of coherence around the archetype of energy. And your heart, which has its own electromagnetic resonance field, then begins, or you program it through your emotional state, you program that heart to begin to attract into your experience opportunities and insights and awarenesses and potentials, fulfilled, manifested potentials, physical reality that matches your emotional state and the energy frequency that your heart is holding. So if you feel energetic, you attract into your life opportunities that create more of a chance for you to expend and enjoy that energy. If I said the word energy and you went bleh in response to it, then your heart is attracting into your life things that match that response. Now, here's where the loving part of this comes in. If you're feeling tired and exhausted and depleted, and you're also saying, I feel stuck and blocked in my life, nothing's happening. It's not that nothing is happening. It's that your beingness is attracting nothing because you're supposed to be resting. You're not supposed to be doing right now. You're perfectly creating an environment within which you can rest. If you can stop worrying, which is the big trick on that one, right? So photons are part of our creative medium. But what inspires the movement of the photons in the first place? Right? If we look at the creative process and the components of the creative process, you'll see on the outside of this image the quantum field. So again, I don't like this image so much because it's very linear in 3D, and then it sort of makes the quantum field as being something out there, and then there's all these different layers. The truth is we're swimming in this all the time. These are all just different dimensions of energy. We're in this matrix. You're living this matrix. It's not like it's separate layers for real. But this is just, but for the sake of visually representing it, the way we're going to represent it. So here you are, you're in the, you're in this physical body, sitting in this quantum field, and to access this quantum field, to access a different quality of potentials, you have to go through a couple of filters. Those filters are what we call the subtle body, the mental body, and the emotional body. So let's break this apart. Obviously, your physical body is your manifest reality. The vital body, or sometimes called the subtle body, is actually the blueprint for your physical experience. So if you've ever gone to get energy healing, if you've gone to a quantum touch specialist, if you work with an acupuncturist, if you work with a homeopath or a naturopath, or anybody that does any kind of energy healing, they are working on this energy blueprint, the subtle body template for your body, their energy field that holds the code for what either you are about to manifest or what you are unmanifesting out of your reality. So if you go to a good psychic and the psychic says, "Oh, I'm sensing there's a man in your aura," you might be going, "Oh yeah, I dumped that guy a couple of weeks ago. His energy is leaving your subtle body template," and she can pick up on that imprint still in your subtle body energy field. Or so you're a good medical empath might say to you, "I'm feeling like there's something going on with your liver." And you might not be feeling it yet, but she's picking up that there's a disturbance in the energy blueprint of your body. And that's a great opportunity then for you to start healing it on an energetic level before it actually manifests into your physical form. In human design, the piece that we also talk about is what's a piece called the design crystal. I'm not going to get into that too much, but let's just make it simple and say that in your human design, and this is the part that comes from your unconscious personality or the red parts on your chart, you have encoded into your human design the code for your physical experience in life, your manifest reality. There are aspects of your life that is already programmed in the design crystal that brings into your life in a more faded kind of a way opportunities, experiences, physical expressions that need to happen for you to fulfill your life story. The mental and the emotional bodies are what we call your conditioning field. This is the place where you store your belief systems, the pain and the trauma of your past, the joys and the delights of your past. This is where you store all of the history of your life experience, and you also store your epigenetic programming here, meaning you don't only carry your own memories and your own artifacts of your energy here, you also carry your ancestral memories here, and those ancestral memories actually influence gene expression. So the more we can clear out and keep this part of the energy field healthy and aligned with vitality and abundance, the more you not only clear your own life experience, you actually clear the gene code. And that code for the genes, the epigene code, goes back into the flow of the genetic pool, and you start to shift the history of and the genetic lineage for all of humanity, and certainly in your own ancestral lineage. And of course, the quantum field is our non-manifest reality. The big thing that we have to really explore when we look at this is the question, who are you? We talk a lot in the world of deliberate creation and the world of consciousness about I create my own reality. Well, if you're creating your own reality, who are you? Who's the you that's creating your reality? You are the space, not the form, in this creative process. And the space of your life, your creative space of your life, and you think about this, if you really studied the building blocks of matter that make up your life, matter blinks on and off, atoms blink on and off, atomic particles blink on and off in a very subtle way. Obviously, it's not perceptual in at least in our physical state, but the expression of your manifest reality is changing in the blink of an eye. All right. What creates what manifests, those blinks of atoms and everything being expressed in the on phase between the blinks, is the space in between. And that space in between is your consciousness. Consciousness is the rocket fuel that mediates between your physical reality through this filter of the subtle body, the mental body, and the emotional body, and the quantum field. Why is this important? This is important because when quantum physicists look at atomic particles, the building blocks of matter, and they watch how it behaves, what they know is that when they measure this atomic matter, that they can only measure the movement of these atomic particles or the location of these particles, but never both at the same time. Here's why this is important. Movement contains potential. The entire quantum field is moving atomic particles, okay? And it's only potential, it's not manifest yet. When an atomic particle is measured, its location is measured, it becomes manifested. So manifestation is the location of potential, or it's actually what happens when a quantum potential, a moving quantum potential, becomes manifested. Meaning, the meanings we give potentials, or sometimes a different word for potentials is archetypes. The meaning we give potentials is what determines what we make manifest in our life. So when I say to you, thinking of your energy, okay, the meaning you have around your energy is what you're going to manifest in your life. The meanings we give things in our life are determined by our conditioning field. And if you want to create what you want, you have to ascribe a meaning that's in alignment with what you want. So you can't say, oh, I'm so tired, and think that somehow by having that meaning, you're going to create a situation where you're not tired. I want to invite you, as you think about healing your burnout, to really start thinking about some of the meanings that you have around burnout. If you want to be less reactive and you want to be more fundamentally creative, meaning if you want to have greater control over your experience of your own vitality, then you have to deal with all the things that are conditioning you to be burned out, including your body. Okay, when you can look at those meanings and start exploring those meanings and realign those meanings, again, healing burnout takes time. This isn't something you're going to do in the blink of an eye, even though it's theoretically possible. If you've gotten to the point where your physical body is actually burned out, that means you've manifested a whole lot of stuff out of the energy field into your physical form, and it takes time. And that time is a gift, not a curse. That time is a blessing. It's something you gave yourself to support yourself in doing what you need to do to bring yourself back online. So, what does that mean in the context of healing burnout? To heal, the first thing you have to do is you've got to change the meanings you've cultivated around your life. You have to also learn to live in alignment with who you truly are, because probably one of the biggest things that we're doing to burn energy in an inappropriate, unhealthy way is trying to force our lives to try to force ourselves to live our lives inauthentically. And you have to rest the body. You have to align the subtle body. You have to decondition your conditioning field. And then you have to ask the universe to show you powerful options to your situation. There are answers to your questions about how can I start to feel better. Those answers are floating as non-manifest potentials in the quantum field right now. For you to be able to collapse those potentials and make them manifest in your physical reality, you have to ask. That's the way in which we as human beings interface with the quantum field. We interface with the quantum field through the power of asking questions. That is why the gates 63, 61, and 64, the top three head gates at the very top of the human design chart, which are the gates that interface between the human story and the quantum field, all three of those gates are gates that operate through questioning. Ask for help. Ask for support. Ask the universe for the answers. And when you ask the question, and you don't worry about having the answer, you don't work on figuring out the answer, because that never works. You ask and then wait and see what shows up, and then craft your life in accordance to what feels good that shows up, and keep following those steps. The pathway to healing will be laid out before you in the way that's right for you. So let's talk about creating a workable plan of healing. The first thing that you want to do when you are assessing or creating a workable plan of healing is you've got to be real with yourself. You have to ask yourself, how much energy do you really have? You know, if you are, and I've had so many people at this level and over the last 20 years in working with human design, especially my projectors. if you are literally so burned out that you can't move, and that's not unusual. And if you're there, don't beat yourself up for this. That's what happens when we miss some of the more subtle cues. The wall that we hit gets bigger and bigger. Again, not because you're being punished, but because you love yourself so much that you're sending yourself a break. All right. But you got to get real about how much energy do you have. Are you able to still go to your job? And some of you might need to. If you're not able to, or if you're in a situation where you can afford to not go to work, then be real about taking that pause without judgment, because you can't override this in some cases. It's really do or die in a lot of cases. So be real about how much energy do you really have. For some of you, your burnout might not be full on physical. You might not feel so great, but you still might be in a place where you're thirsty for things like joy and creative expression and something that will zap you out of your boredom and your old patterns. And that's a different quality of burnout rather than the complete and total collapse. When you can assess how much energy you have, then you can begin to craft what kind of a plan do you need. If you're so in the tank that you can't get off the couch, it's not going to be realistic for you to expect that you're going to create like some whole huge immune boosting, generating dietary plan that requires you to stand in the kitchen and cook for 6 days. If you are just barely getting by, then craft a plan that matches the quality of energy that you have and get out of your head with the judgment piece. Sometimes when we're in this place, we are in survival mode and we got to tackle getting off the couch as goal number one. And sometimes that means just getting sleep and rest. Number two, you have to explore how are you resting and are you getting real rest and restoration, and ignore what you've been told. This is about what works for you. Okay. Now, I posted something on Facebook about burnout, and I asked people, like, what do you do to heal yourself from burnout? And I was surprised at how many responses involved some form of watching TV, eating junk food, and drinking wine. Now, I'm not judging that because I myself will sometimes watch TV, eat Cheetos. I love Cheetos. I don't eat them very often, but I do love them, and drink wine. Now, that's great if that's what you're doing on a Friday night every once in a while. But that's not a restorative practice. And I think that we have fallen into, particularly because self-care, I think, is not something many of us are good at, both individually and I think even collectively. We're not very good at self-care. I was looking in this gift shop and noticing there was a section in the gift shop that was beach bungalow decor. That was the title of the section in the gift shop. And it was like all these placards and pillows about going to the beach and drinking wine. And I thought, there is something about alcohol that's really fun in that it does relax us. It gets us out of the mental chatter sometimes and causes us to decompress a little bit. And as I said, I'm not judging that. I am saying, though, that strategies that don't support your long-term restoration as a technique for healing don't work. So I really want us to explore what is rest, what is real rest. You can be laying on the couch watching TV, and you might think you're resting, but if you're worried or freaked out while you're lying there, or if you're lying there in complete denial about what's really going on with you, even though your body's not moving, you're not resting, and you actually can burn out lying on the couch worrying. So I want you to explore for yourself, when you think about a workable plan for healing, what is genuinely resting for you? For you. Okay? For me, I have discovered in the last 2 years cycling. I love to bike. And I am learning. My husband used to be a professional cyclist. I have learned from him how to ride road bikes. Now, I can't ride road bikes right now in the wintertime, but I have a Peloton bike. But I love cycling, and getting on the bike for a couple of hours and going for a really long, really fast ride, that's resting for me. That might not be resting for some of you. That might be a lot of work for some of you. I'm a manifesting generator. I got to move my energy. If you're a no motors projector, That might be a death knell for you if I put you on a bike and said, okay, go ride for a couple of hours, all right? This is about doing what works for you, and it has to be something that will sustain you, not burn you out further. And that's really important to understand, because sometimes we get into this mental chatter of, well, I'm cleaning my house this weekend, I'm just staying home. But you're staying home and you're scrubbing everything and you've rolled up all the carpets and moved all the furniture and you're dusting everything. That's not resting just because you're home. And I want you to really pay attention to, what are you doing when you rest? And is it really restorative? And that's the benchmark. If you're done resting and you get up from the resting, whatever you've done to rest, do you feel restored? And if you don't, then I'm going to challenge you to say maybe what you're doing isn't actually resting. It has to be something that's restful and restorative. And don't worry about what it looks like. Go with how it feels like for you. You also have to take in consideration all the areas of your energy field. You have to, first of all, as I said, change the meanings that you're drawing from, which means I really want you to explore the meanings that you hold around some of the key archetypes that are involved in healing burnout, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. I want you to think about, what are some powerful creative questions that you can use that can support you in attracting to yourself the answers to those questions that will help you heal your burnout. You have to also explore what's going on in your conditioning field. You know, if you're a projector and you were raised by manifesting generators and you were told, get up off the couch, why are you being so lazy your whole life, when you were just doing what you needed to do to restore your energy, and you have judgments around not doing anything, and you feel bad or guilty if you're not quote unquote productive because of your conditioning, you've got to clear that up. Because every time you lie down, if you've still got that in your energy field and you haven't worked your way through that, you're going to feel guilty for resting, and that burns energy. It doesn't restore you at all. Okay. You'll also have to tackle the subtle body. Sometimes we need to go and get energy work to help with the burnout. And you need to get good, high quality energy work in whatever modality feels good and right for you. And you have to rest the physical body. You have to literally heal your physical body, especially if you've gone into, big, deep secondary symptoms like adrenal fatigue, or you've crashed your thyroid. Okay. So let's talk first about meanings. I want you to take this home as a homework assignment, all right? What meanings do you have around the archetype of work, rest, money, creativity, and authenticity? Write those down. I want to really encourage you to do some serious hardcore journaling this week about these archetypes. How do you feel about the idea of work? Do you have to work? Is your identity around work? What happens if you don't work? What about work and money? What's your relationship between those two? How do you see that? Do you feel comfortable working in the way that's right for your energy type according to human design? How do you feel about rest? What judgments do you might have about rest? What were you told when you rested as a child? Did you ever see anybody rest? I've never seen anybody rest in my whole life. My parents are both manifesting generators. They're almost in their 80s. My dad's going to be 80 this year. Those people exhaust the heck out of me. They never stop. If I was a projector and they had raised me, I'd be dead by now. Okay? So think about rest. What does it mean to you? Think about money. What's your relationship between your value, your self-worth, your self-care, and your money? Because that's a big, big, interesting dynamic to explore. That's a big, challenging dynamic for a lot of us. Creativity. What does creativity mean to you? Do you have the freedom to express your creativity? Because your creativity can oftentimes be a pathway to healing your burnout. And of course, do you give yourself permission, or how do you feel about being fully authentic in your life? Is your life a compromise? And if it is, do you need to stop compromising and create a life that is a reflection of what you genuinely and really want? If you are working on healing the mental and the emotional body, you got to ask yourself, are you carrying the energy of any trauma in your body, mind, or spirit that's keeping you from being fully present to your life? And if you are, I really want to encourage you and support you to reaching out and finding some way of getting support for healing that trauma, whether that's through therapy, through counseling, through energy work, through working with a coach. It's going to depend to a certain degree on how intense the trauma is. and what you feel comfortable exploring with someone. I also want you to think about what beliefs do you have about your value, your lovability, your power, your decisiveness, your emotional wisdom, your self trust, your authenticity, and your self worth that might be keeping you from fully tapping into your full energy flow. Do you believe that you are worthy of taking care of yourself? These are really important questions to explore. Of course, also you've got to work on this, as I said, on the subtle body level. You can work with flower essences, essential oils, acupuncture, homeopathy, energy healing. We actually have a line of custom flower essences that we've created for each of the 9 resiliency keys. You can order those from our gal, our potion lady gal, who custom blends essences for you. Or if you're really burned out, give her a call and book a session. She'll create a custom flower essence for you. We also have a line of custom essential oils that we've had created that also, again, are essential oils that you can work with to work on any of the resiliency keys. Of course, I think I'm a big fan of acupuncture. That is something at least my sacral has always responded well to. Homeopathy, energy healing, whatever you need to do to get that energy template clear so that you can get yourself back in alignment with the vitality that is a truth of who you are. And then, of course, you've got to take care of the physical. You need sleep and rest. And I can't stress strongly enough the importance of getting good, high quality sleep. You need sleep to heal the endocrine system. And if and it's sort of a catch 22, because if you've gone into a crash of your thyroid and your adrenal system, like we talked about a little bit last time we talked in lesson 2 of this burnout session, that actually starts to disrupt your sleep. And then you get into the cycle where your sleep is disrupted and now you're getting more sleep deprived, which is actually burning more adrenaline and crashing your endocrine system even more. So you have to really break the sleep cycle or the sleep deprivation cycle, which means, like it or not, you've got to make sleep a priority. And it might be that for 6-8 months, you need to be sleeping 10 to 12 hours a day to catch up on the disrupted cycle that you've been in. But that helps the body heal so immensely. I recommend, and again, I'm uncomfortable making dietary and rigid health recommendations because I do believe that one of the gifts of human design is that it gives you your own inner authority, and that inner authority will let you know what you need to do physically to take care of your health and wellness. And certainly, I'm throwing out suggestions. I'm encouraging you to tune in with your own authority and your own inner awareness about what might resonate for you or not. And if it doesn't resonate for you, please don't do it. You know best what you need. But I am a big fan of inflammation reducing diets. I do think they really help heal with burnout. And there are lots of different kinds of inflammation reducing diets. Also, adrenal supports. There are some great supplements now, particularly, mushrooms. There's some really powerful healing mushrooms on the market that are much easier to get than they used to be, that can help support the adrenal glands in particular. And doing things like meditation, yoga, tai chi, going outside, and this is a big one, limiting your exposure to media and computer, because there's a lot of growing body of research that's suggesting that screen time, both from the electrical magnetic frequency perspective and from the way it works on the brain, actually depletes our energy. And that getting away from the screen, getting away from being constantly on the computer or on the phone can actually help your body heal from some of the depletion that we feel. I really want to encourage you to know the difference between self-care, that's that consistent, resilient, sustaining way of recharging your battery, versus overcompensating for exhaustion and avoidance. Know the difference between rest and binge watching Netflix and Cheetos and drinking wine, so that whatever you're doing becomes a sustainable act of rest and restoration. Ask for help, even if you're a manifesting generator or a manifester. Sometimes we need somebody else to come in and handle the little parts of our life, or we need to hire somebody. If you're a parent, bring in like a 12-year-old to be a mother's helper and play with your kids so you can get an extra hour or two on the couch in the afternoon to rest and restore your body. There's no shame in asking for help, okay? And that also means asking the universe for help. Pray, and we're designed to pray by questioning. Ask and receive. That's the nature of how we interface with the quantum field. Ask for help from the universe and wait and see what shows up for you. Make sure that you have a plan. If you are really, really burned out, it's difficult to tell the difference between overcompensation and self care. So cultivate a plan and do your best to set it up ahead of time so that when you come home, for example, from work and you know you're too tired to fix a good and healthy dinner and you know you're not going to have the energy for it, have it set up ahead of time. And it may be that you don't set it up ahead of time. You'll get help setting it up ahead of time, but do your best to create the infrastructure, the framework for what you need to heal yourself so that it's in place and you don't have a lot of places in your daily life, in your daily patterns and habits where you have wiggle room to try to figure things out when you're burned out and tired at the end of the day. Set things up as quickly and as easily as possible and have a plan so that the plan is in place and you don't have to think, figure out, decide, feel your way through, or anything. You can come home, grab what you need, hit the couch, rest, restore, get extra sleep, and go back to work the next day until you can hopefully get yourself into a pattern where you're recharged and regenerated. And if you have to, hopefully, I'm hoping that some of you might be in a really deep state of burnout, that you give yourself permission to leave your work and take whatever time you need to recharge your battery on a bigger scale so that you can enjoy your life again. Start one step at a time. It doesn't have to be rewiring your entire life in the beginning. You might just want to start with, okay, I'm going to work on getting extra sleep. Then maybe you want to move to changing some of your dietary stuff. Don't do the whole program, any kind of whole program at once. Break it down. When you are burned out, you don't have oftentimes the energy for a huge transformation. So do one little step at a time. One last thing. We are deeply conditioned to be logical. We want systems, patterns. We want proof. That's only 1/3, actually less than 1/3 of the chart. 2/3 of who we are, by definition or by openness, is not reasonable or logical. It's creative in a very different way. And logic, by the way, is creative as well. But our creativity, especially our sensual creativity, moving our bodies, expressing the essence of the story of who we are, drawing, writing, painting, those are the traditional ways we think of creating. But even something as simple as creating a meal or creating time or hanging out with your dog or your cat. These are all not logical events. These are illogical events by human design, but important aspects in healing. If you are trying to be logical and you're not a logical person, if you're trying to fit into a system and you're not part of the system, and you've been smushing yourself and forcing yourself into a little tiny box that really doesn't fit you, you've got to activate your creativity as a powerful part of healing who you are. So when we get creative, particularly when we get into the creative flow, this is something I actually have my clients do now. My students do in my live workshops and training. I have learned now when I'm delivering a lot of data to put an art table in the back and let my students, while they're learning, paint and draw and create and finger paint or glue things together or play with the glitter, because that act of being in that creative flow actually allows us to leap over our conditioning and go straight into the quantum field and pull into our experience a different answer to the challenges that we're struggling with. Activating this creativity by increasing your dopamine, meaning doing things that feel good. Take a shower, go for a walk, go to an art museum, go play in the dollar store, go to Barnes & Noble and browse the books, go get yourself a nice cup of coffee, go to the bakery next door and get yourself an eclair every once in a while. Do those things that activate that sensual aspect of who you are. Doing those things can actually be profoundly healing. They lower stress levels, they increase dopamine, and actually facilitate the healing process when we are burned out. Don't downplay, because we have a tendency when we're deeply conditioned by logic, when we start to have creative drives and desires, or we want to do something that's not reasonable for ourselves, we start to downplay it and we push it away. What if a creative expression a deepening of that well of creativity that is you is the most healing act you can commit for yourself right now. Think about that. I hope that in this conversation, you have learned something. I hope you've gotten even one little tidbit that can give you a good start. Remember, a small step, a baby step, a beginning step to helping you reclaim your life, get yourself back into alignment with the truth of who you are, heal your burnout, and get yourself unstuck out of a pattern of compromise, depletion, exhaustion, or settling for less than what you're really worthy of.